Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I got to give a big shout out to David Hatch and HC. They've been supporting us over at patreon.com/PCP for a while now. Really do appreciate the support, homies. Thank you so much for making this a reality and helping us bring these reviews to the community. If you want to join them and unlock exclusive content and early access, including early audio access to the weekly comic book review hours before it drops here on YouTube, check out patreon.com/PCP. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the weekly comic book review, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Decorum number 3. Jonathan Hickman, Mike Huddleston, Image Comics, Decorum. Decorum number 3 is the pick of the week. There were many books that almost could have been the pick of the week. But really, when I was thinking about it, it's Decorum. The innovation, the clever style in writing and in artwork. If you've been reading this book and you find yourself a bit confused, I think a lot of it will become a little bit more clear in issue number 3. In issue number 3, you get a little bit more into the characters, the main characters, and a little bit more about the gist of what they're actually doing. Now, all the crazy world building that Hickman is known for, that's just set dressing, right? So this story is really just about an assassin who has impeccable decorum. She's got excellent manners, right? Seriously. And it's a really funny type thing. This is an incredibly funny issue. I liked it a lot. You get introduced to the Sisterhood of Man, who is like this assassin school for women, and of course the main character is a part of that, right? The world building is astounding, but the artwork is amazing. Huddleston is really stretching his limits in this book. In each scene, he approaches it with a different style of color, a different style of line work, a different style of paneling and composition. And I think that's brilliant. There's a moment in here where they're going through a transit world, and at first you see a map, and it has all these like grids that you typically see in like a map of a city or something like that, right? And then as they're going through the transition world, those lines appear as part of the artwork through their journey. I think stuff like that is incredibly magnificent, and I loved it. Decorum number 3 to me really solidifies what this book is about. It kind of ramps up the funny, it ramps up the explanations, but it still is set in this very intricate world that has been thought up by Hickman and Huddleston and company. This book is amazing. I love it. Decorum number 3, and if you have been confused, I think it's going to become a bit more clear in issue number 3. This is an 8-part miniseries. I cannot wait to see where it goes and how it wraps up. But right now, I'm having the time of my life, and I'm just staring at the pages of this beautiful, beautiful, elegant artwork from Mike Huddleston. Let me show you some good stuff there. It's got weird, quirky stuff in it. It's got great design. Decorum number 3, pick of the week. There you go. From Image Comics. Also from Image Comics, we have Chew number 1. So it's Chew, C-H-U, right? This is kind of like a sequel to Chew, C-H-E-W, by John Layman. And of course, that had artwork by Rob Guillory. Anyway, Chew number 1, interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. Now, I have never read the previous Chew series, so I decided I'd just hop right in and see what was going on. I enjoyed this issue. I liked the setup. We got a different artist for this one. It's not Guillory, it's Dan Boltwood, but I do like the art. I think it fits the style of the story. It's a little frantic. It's a little fun. It's a little loose. But I was a little bit like, man, I really need to read Chew. Chew's one of those books. We all have them. Books that are like critically acclaimed or highly esteemed by the community, and you just never got into it, never checked it out. I've never read Chew. My first exposure to Chew was the Chew Outer Darkness miniseries that just concluded. So I wanted to jump in here, and it was still enjoyable, but I definitely wish I would have read the original Chew series, and I gotta carve out the time to make that happen. However, if you're a fan of that series, I think you're really going to get into it. And if you're interested in getting into this one, I suggest picking it up. But I also suggest picking up at least volume 1 or 2 of the original series to get into that world. Chew number 1, though, from John Layman, Dan Boltwood, pretty solid. Pretty solid. Bliss #1 is a new one from Image Comics this week with writing by Sean Lewis, artwork by Caitlin Yarsky. That's the creative team of Coyotes. I remember reading the first couple issues of that one and then kind of falling off. Sean Lewis, though, writes some amazing work that I also really like, mostly with artwork by Hayden Sherman, just like the recently completed Thumbs series from last year. Bliss #1 had really cool artwork, and it was decent, but at times it was a bit hard to follow. It was a bit hard to understand what exactly was happening. It became a bit more clear towards the end, but not quite clear enough maybe to necessarily hook me in. I know that Sean Lewis is a very talented writer, and so I may continue on with this series to see where it's going to go. But Bliss #1 didn't really excite me that much. Not as much as I was wanting it to. I really did like the artwork. Thought the artwork was pretty cool. It's got this like dynamic, fluid style to it. But the story was just kind of a little bit muddied throughout. And it kind of clarifies things towards the end. But it didn't really do a great job of compelling me and getting me hooked and eager to come back to issue #2. I'll come back to issue #2 solely on the history of Sean Lewis as a writer, but this first issue was just kind of okay. Middlewest #18, that's the variant cover, because I just love that. I think that's a very strong and powerful variant, especially if you've been reading this book. This is the final issue of Middlewest. This book has been amazing. Written by Scotty Young with artwork by Jorge Corona. I loved the ending of this book. I think they nailed it. They nailed the need of a giant explosive action sequence for the ending. They nailed the need for a giant emotional sequence for the ending. This has been a book about a kid running away from his abusive father, and he's in danger of kind of becoming like his father himself. This actually gets brought out in a very real and gnarly kind of way, with him being like this air elemental or something. This is a dramatic, climatic conclusion to this series, and I thought they just nailed it. Scotty Young, to me, this is the best work that he's ever written. It was fire. The artwork was gorgeous. The coloring, everything. There's these big, expansive, like 2-page spreads that are just absolutely fantastic. They knocked this one out of the park. I can't wait to sit down in the not too distant future and read all 18 issues in one sitting, because this is a great, it's what starts off as a deceptively simple fairy tale type story about a boy running away, and it becomes something much more deeper and resonating than that. And the ending here in issue #18 completely just fulfilled everything that this story needed in order to wrap up in a fantastic manner. Middlewest #18 out this week. Let's jump over to Marvel. They've released another free comic book day issue this week. It's the SpiderMan free comic book day. It's already kind of heating up online. Don't buy this online. Go to a shop. This is a free comic book. Don't buy this online. People are trying to sell it, gouge up the price a little bit. This is a free comic book that's available from a lot of shops. So just be patient. I think you'll find it. It's got a Spider-Man Black Cat story in there by Jed MacKay. It's okay. It's okay. I think it really kind of spins more out of what's been happening in Black Cat, because obviously Jed MacKay writes that book. I haven't been following that book, but it was okay. It was decent. What everybody's going to be on this book for, though, is the Ryan Stegman, Donny Cates Venom story, and this is supposed to be the first full appearance of Virus. Though that happened last week in Venom #26, this is actually a prelude story to Venom 26, so kind of messed up the scheduling there just a wee bit. In fact, there are moments that are in Venom 26 that are actually payoffs for things from this little preview. However, that story was really cool. Great artwork, a great introduction to that character. I knew I was confused. I was like, I thought we had already seen this character. I didn't know. Everybody's tripping out on Virus. We're going to figure out who he is pretty soon. But do not pay for this book. This was a free comic book day book, and it just drops this week. So please don't pay for this. This book should be free. Should be free, especially because only half of it's pretty good. Empyre #2 is here. I was kind of fooled by Empyre #1. So we get this idea, and there may be some slight spoilers for Empyre #1. If you don't want to know that, maybe just chill out for a second. But I will say this. We were led to believe that this story was about the Kree and the Skrull uniting their empires, and that Earth was going to be caught in the middle of some kind of battle. And that is true. There's been this other development coming out. In fact, I'm not going to really spoil it, but it's kind of obvious to a lot of people now. Empire #1 had a twist at the end, and it had some moments that really made me go, wow, this is actually pretty solid. So I gave it a positive review. Issue #2, quite boring. Quite boring, quite matter-of-fact, just a run-of-the-mill, mediocre comic book event. That's what I felt like in issue #2. It didn't live up to the setup for issue #1 for me. It didn't carry any kind of an emotional, compelling resonance or anything like that. It was just kind of bland and blah and just an average superhero invasion story. So those have been done to death, to be honest with you. So Empire #2 to me was severely weak, especially compared to what I thought was a very delightful first issue. But issue #2 kind of threw me off. But that Cho cover right there, come on. The Thing cover from issue #1. Now Sue, you know I'm going to have to get the 4. It's just going to happen. Empyre Avengers #1. A boring, needless tie-in. If you are following Empyre, don't feel compelled or feel like it's necessary to pick this one up. This was kind of weak. It was kind of boring. It dragged. It's written by Jim Zub. It's just this invasion, and a bunch of Avengers are trying to take care of it and do their thing, and my nose itches tonight. But it was just kind of okay. It just didn't really do much to me. In fact, I'll be honest, man, there's going to be a few more Empyre tie-ins, and I thought they were all quite lackluster, except for maybe one. And the one I'm talking about is not this one. This is Lords of Empyre, Emperor Hulkling. If you are reading Empyre and you don't know much about the character of Hulkling and you want to know more, check this book out. It's a one-shot comic book. It will let you know more about this character, his origins, where he comes from, where his place in the Marvel Universe, and how he gets led into becoming this leader of the Kree and the Skrull. So that's pretty much the purpose of this book. But its execution is not very well. Now, it's co-written by Chip Zdarsky, so I had some faint hope, but it was boring, it was bland, it was drab, and maybe that's because a lot of it is just information that I already knew. However, this one, to me, was a hard pass. Empyre XMen. This one was good. This one was good because it does deal with the idea of this invasion force and the Kree and the Skrull and all this kind of stuff going on, right? But this is actually just an X-Men book. And if you're liking the direction of X-Men right now, I would say, even if you're not reading Empyre, pick this one up. There's some interesting developments, especially involving Scarlet Witch and Genosha and X-Corp. And you got Angel involved, you got Magic involved, you've got, what's her name? Is that Monet? I don't know. You get all kinds of craziness involved. I really like this one. This one is written by Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard. So you know that this one definitely felt more like an X-Men book than an Empyre tie-in. It does tie into Empyre, and there's a part of the invading force on Empyre that somehow is connected maybe a little bit to Krakoan technology, and I think that's interesting. So far, I thought this was good. I thought, like, out of all the Empyre books this week, this was the top dog for me, but it was mostly just on the strength of it being an intriguing X-Men book that is bringing to light some really cool stuff that's going to have an effect on the rest of the X-Men's world to come. So I thought that was pretty cool. So even if you're not reading Empyre, I would encourage you, if you're reading X-Men and you're into the Hickman stuff, to check this one out. I thought it was pretty solid. X-Men Fantastic Four #4 is finally here. And people have been asking me like crazy, like, this is the book everybody wants to know. We got one issue left, what's going on? At the end of the last issue, we had Doom, who had these Doom bot Sentinel hybrid things. It was crazy. He's trying to activate Franklin's powers again to full effect. He's been playing both sides, the mutants and the Fantastic Four. You get Franklin stuck in the middle, and this was a satisfying wrap-up to that. I really did like it. It kind of ended abruptly, but it's what happens in a 4-issue series. It also kind of feels a little bit more abrupt, maybe because, I don't know, it's been like, what, 4 months since we've read the last issue, but Chip Zdarsky, once again, making a very strong case that he should be writing Fantastic Four. He understands Doom. He understands Reed. He understands Franklin and Val. He understands Sue. He even gets Ben and Johnny. We know that already, but Zdarsky understands the legacy and the power of the Fantastic Four, and of course Victor Von Doom. I love this new relationship with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. It hits a climax in this issue, and it's going to resonate out for a while to come. I was really satisfied with this conclusion. Thought it was pretty solid. But once again, just Zdarsky needs to be writing Fantastic Four. Absolutely. That's what needs to happen. Wolverine number 3 is here. A very interesting issue that, for the most part, wraps up that first initial story and sets up what's to come. I really like what Benjamin Percy's doing here. Much like he's doing with his X-Force book, he's really helping flesh out some of the ramifications globally about the mutants in Krakoa and all that kind of jazz. So you get some tidbits about what's going on in the non-treaty nations, such as Russia and things like that. But you just get some nice, interesting character explorations on Wolverine, on who he is and why he does what he does. Plus, you have Adam Kubert on the artwork. And I loved Adam Kubert back in the 90s when he was doing Wolverine. Like, I loved that shit. But this is even better than his work from the 90s. I really like it. He's come a long way. And the artwork, to me, is powerful. It's explosive, and it's Wolverine at its finest. I really liked this book. Action-packed, intriguing. And you got a bunch of other X-Men in there as well, and a lot of setup about what's to come. Wolverine number 3, pretty solid. Hellions number 2. Hellions number 1 really surprised me. Really surprised me. Issue number 2, a little bit weaker, but still a fun book. There's a lot of funny, laugh-out-loud moments for me in this book, and I thought that was great. So it's like a ragtag group of mutants that don't really fit in, including Havoc and Psylocke, but you got Wild Child, you got the Orphan Maker and Nanny, you got others in there. There's some great moments in this book. It's an okay issue. It's got some interesting stuff going on. It's decently intriguing and compelling, but it just wasn't as hyped to me as the first issue. But the second issue, it wasn't bad. It had a lot of funny moments in it. And it seems like this is just going to kind of be like a fun, violent, goofy kind of book. And maybe there's a place for that in the X-Men's world. But I really like the exploration of some of these characters, and the ending was pretty cool, and I can't wait to see what's going to come out of that. Hellions number 2 finally arrives back in shops this week. New Mutants number 11 is here. I'm starting to lose it on this book. You know, I've been defending this book. I thought that Brisson's first story was good. I thought the Hickman initial story was good. But now it's starting to just, I don't know. It's got some decent, like, composition and layout as far as that goes, but the story I found to be a bit dull, a bit boring. Now, here's the thing. Because of the shutdown, maybe some of it's just that it's been a while since we've read some of these books. But New Mutants was already starting to be one of the weaker Dawn of X titles, and now it's kind of like settled in being probably the weakest. In fact, I would say that this is even weaker than Excalibur, which to me, that was the weakest at first. So this one's kind of losing me a little bit. I'm still intrigued by it. I still like these characters. I still want to know what's going on. But it's not as exciting to me as I want it to be as some of the other X-Men books. Amazing Spider-Man Sin's Rising Prelude. Yes, as if Spider-Man wasn't dull enough, let's go out and give you a double-sized, one-shot comic book instead of just having this be the next issue of Spider-Man. I hate it when they do that, and they've been doing that on Nick Spencer's run. Ugh. Anyway, this issue's okay. It explores the history of the Sin Eater. You can tell that Nick Spencer's a big fan of some of the 80s stuff from Spider-Man, and that's what he's been bringing up, and that's fine. I think a lot of that stuff is cool. The Sin Eater, maybe a lot of people don't remember who the character is, and now in this issue they explain a lot, they add some new information, so that's interesting, and it's to set up what's to come, but it was just still okay. It was just alright. I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't bad, but it's not making me really excited for Amazing Spider-Man. But I will stick with Amazing Spider-Man. Why? Because I'll read it so you don't have to. However, Sin's Rising, the Prelude, is out if you are into Spider-Man. If you don't want to miss a single beat of the story, this is necessary, I would say, to pick it up. But maybe it's not super necessary. It's mostly an explanation, an origin type thing, but it does explain how the Sin Eater is back and what his possible motivation will be. So there you go. We need a new writer on Amazing Spider-Man. Daredevil number 21 is here. Chip Zdarsky just tearing it up on Daredevil. We got Marco Cicchetto on the artwork. Absolutely brilliant and fantastic. This picks up directly after the end of the last issue. Some major ramifications and some really interesting things are happening in here. This is a little bit of a, after the big explosive nature of the previous couple issues, this one's a little bit of a lull, but it's supposed to be like that. It fits right into the pace and flow of the overall story, and I like it. And I like what Matt Murdock's going through right now. And there's a really great scene in here with Matt Murdock and Spider-Man that I'm like, yo, bro, no, you just didn't. But yo, we have all been loving Zdarsky on Daredevil. This is no exception. This is going to be defined like a definitive classic run of Daredevil as long as he can keep this up. And he already has for 21 issues, so I don't doubt that he can. Zdarsky is killing it at Marvel right now. Let's jump over to DC. Batman 95 is here with the official start of the Joker War. Because of all the lead into the Joker War, the journey to the Joker War, it feels like we've already been reading the Joker War for a while. But it officially kicks off here. All the pieces are in place, and now, bam, let's go. Loved this issue. It's starting to feel a bit similar. It's almost like Joker's idea is almost similar to the plot from Dark Knight Rises with Bane stealing Batman's technology and taking over and all that kind of stuff. But it's the Joker, and that adds a whole new dimension to it. Punchlines in this issue, she's badass again. She's exactly what I've always wanted Harley to be. Psychotic, scary, deadly, threatening, serious. Not goofy in the slightest. And I really like that. You got Jorge Jimenez on the artwork. Oh my goodness, I've been loving Tynian's Batman run. But when Jimenez is doing the artwork, I love it even more. Seriously, this is a pretty solid issue. A great first part of the Joker War. I'm into it. I'm digging it. And you get introduced to the next possible Batman costume, or a version. He's just going to wear it for like one thing, right? I'm sure. Anyway, Batman number 95 is here. And I really did like it. This Joker War, it's going to be pretty explosive. Batgirl number 47 is here. It's a tie-in to the Joker War. There's some interesting stuff in here. Basically, Joker knows who Bruce and everybody is, right? And now he's finally acting on that information. So he goes after Barbara Gordon, and unlike the Killing Joke, she fights back. And I thought that was cool, and I really liked her taking that power back. Overall, though, the issue was just kind of okay. It is not necessarily essential to the overall Joker War story, but I know a lot of people are going to be eating up these tie-ins, and it was pretty decent. It wasn't bad, and it was nice to see Babs kind of, like, throw it back on Joker, and I thought that was pretty cool. But the story itself was interesting. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad in the slightest. Batgirl number 47, continuing with the Joker War tie-ins. We also have Detective Comics 1024. I thought this was a weak-ass issue, to be honest with you. Tomasi's Detective Comics, to me, has been incredibly inconsistent. Like, last issue I really liked, but there was literally, to me, just not a good payoff to what was set up in the previous issue into this one. And that's one of the things that Tomasi's been doing, to me, on his detective run. He'll set something up, and you're like, oh, that's badass. And then it doesn't pay off. Or, I mean, it pays off, but just in a kind of a weak, mediocre kind of way. So Detective Comics 1024, I just wasn't that big into. I still think Kev Walker's doing some amazing work, some of his best work. Not as good in this issue as he was previously, but all the Joker scenes are pretty good. So it is a tie-in to the Joker War. They're building up to it, but I just don't like this Two-Face story. You see some familiar faces back right there. That's the setup from the last issue that was really cool. Like, oh, he's back. Oh my goodness, where are we going? Anyway, Detective Comics 1024 is here. Shazam is here, issue number 13. Not the penultimate issue of Shazam, but the penultimate issue of Jeff Johns' run on Shazam. So there's one more issue of Jeff Johns' run. Then there's a 15 issue. It's just a time like a one shot, and then I think the series is over. So I'm really liking it. You got Mr. Mind. I'm telling you this. I never, ever in my life thought Mr. Mind was a threatening or scary villain or anything like that. Well, Jeff Johns has changed my Mr. Mind. Anyway, that's so bad. I shouldn't even have done that. Anyway, Shazam number 13 was a solid issue with really solid artwork by Dale Inglesham, and I really like what Jeff Johns has been doing. He's really elaborating and building out the world and mythology of Shazam and making it incredibly interesting. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. What Jeff Johns has done on this Shazam series is 100% to me where they're going to go in a sequel. With the 7 other lands, like, I think all that stuff's really clever. You get introduced to more characters from those lands, some big bads and things like that, and building out a proper rogues gallery for Shazam that just doesn't have Savannah and Mr. Mind, because that's, to me, all he's got. Oh, yeah, and Black Adam, right? Obviously, Black Adam, but Black Adam's his own character. Now he's going to get his own movie. He's not going to be in a Shazam movie. Anyway, Shazam number 13. Pretty dope. Can't wait to see how all that concludes. Flash 758 is here. Wow, what a great issue. This whole Legion of Zoom stuff is amazing. We keep saying it. Josh Williamson's just been killing it on the Flash for like 4 years now. Just fantastic stuff, like over 80 issues done. It's nearing the end of his run, and I'm going to be sad to see him go, but this is great. And you also have some returning characters from previous continuity, and that's always exciting to me. Williamson's been doing that throughout his run. The artwork by Christian Duce is phenomenal, amazing. It's kinetic, it moves, it's got that sense of motion, exactly what you need in a Flash book. This book is just heating up right now. It's so much fun. Basically, what's been going on is that the Reverse Flash is building his own Legion, the Legion of Zoom. You got Grodd in there, you got the Turtle in there, you got Captain Cold in there, you got other people in there, and it's just great, and they're building up to something big and explosive for Joshua Williamson's finale, and I can't wait to see it, but I'm going to be sad when his run's over. Flash 758 out this week. Justice League Dark 24. What a phenomenal issue of Justice League Dark this is. So this book started under the writing of James Tynion, and then when he went and took over Batman, he had to let this book go. He hadn't completely wrapped up everything. All this stuff, like the Upside Down Man, all that stuff's still out there dangling. And so they brought in Rom V, and Rom V's been kind of just, curating, like just taking care of the story, getting it to its next logical point. And I love Rom V's work. But this issue to me finally felt like this is a Rom V book. This isn't Rom V working off of James Tynion plots or doing what he would have done. This is Rom V doing what he would do. And this book has already been good, but I think it has the potential to hit a next level of greatness under the hands of Rom V. The artwork was great. The focus on Zatanna and everybody else. This is kind of like one of those like calm before the storm type issues where you got all these characters in their own places. We're going to go along and focus on each character. And even if you haven't been reading this book, I think you could jump into this issue because of the way it's structured. It's one of those, here we are, here's where everybody's at, and here's where we're going to go. And it really ramps it up. And there's some really cool ideas that are explored in here. And I know that Rom V is still going off of a lot of what Tynion's direction would have been, but this feels to me like it's finally become a Rom V book. And I loved it. Justice League Dark number 24. I love a good book with Zatanna, I'll be honest. Action Comics 1023. There are moments of this book where I was like, this ain't so bad. The writing's not so bad. I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to buy into the idea that so much stuff has happened with Superman that he just maybe made this decision to share his identity and go public, and maybe it was a rash decision, and maybe he regrets it, and there's some interesting stuff there. There are even moments where I'm like, yeah, that's the John Romita Jr. I like. But then after the first few pages, it just went right back into, nope, this feels rushed, it feels sloppy, it just feels just ridiculous. And Superman needs to be, and it rarely is, the Superman book's got to be Superman. And I'm just not getting that right now. I love John Romita Jr.'s artwork. I know a lot of people don't, but to me, for him, this is sloppy, it's rushed. Maybe it's the inker, but it's Klaus Janson. Like, what? Klaus Janson has inked him plenty of times, and I love that artwork. There's just something about it that I'm just not digging. But it was deceptively decent at the beginning, but then it just fell apart for me. I'm just not digging the direction on Superman right now. And I don't know if that's going to change at all during the Bendis era. We'll see. Amethyst number 4 is here. I'm pretty much going to keep giving this book the same review. It's not very good. I wouldn't recommend it to people. I'm going to read it and enjoy it, though, because it's an Amethyst book. And I love this character for some reason. But I never expect too much out of an Amethyst book. But I totally got spoiled in the New 52 when they did that Sword and Sorcery book. And they brought in Christy Marks, creator Jim and the Holograms, and she did a fantastic job building up this world. And but Amy Reeder is definitely using a lot of that, but it just kind of feels incoherent and kind of sloppy at times. So I'm going to keep reading this book because I love this character and I own every Amethyst comic book to date. So why stop now? But it's okay. It's not going to change the world or turn you into a fan of Amethyst at all. Joker, Harley, Criminal Sanity, Secret Files. I've been really liking this Joker Harley DC Black Label book. It paints the idea that the Joker's a serial killer. Harley Quinn, or Harleen Quinzel, is a criminal profiler. She studies. She's a psychologist. She studies criminal behavior, serial killers, and stuff like that. And the Joker's the one case that got away, and now years later he's back, or there's a copycat going on, or something like that. This is a one-shot called Secret Files. It's completely not necessary. It is literally just files, like case files of the murders and things like that. And you do got some bits like this that give you some extra information. You got some amazing pages in here by David Mack. A couple of pages by David Mack, if I remember right. Yeah, towards the end there. I just love David Mack's artwork. I love that cover. Probably my cover of the week. But this book is completely not necessary to the overall story at all. But it is pretty interesting and cool. But it's a big week, and I don't know if the $6 price tag's really necessary, even if you're enjoying this book. But that David Mack cover, for sure. From IDW, we have Kanto returning in a one-shot, Kanto and the Clockwork Fairies. Don't worry, this isn't the end of Kanto. There's a whole new miniseries debuting next month. But this is a nice one-and-done, short and sweet story about Kanto and the Clockwork Fairies. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Almost made the pick of the week. Almost, but I love it. Everything that I loved about the initial Kanto series is here. The heart, the charm, the heroic nature of it. The artwork by Drew Zucker and Vittorio Astoni. The coloring, oh my goodness, the texture. Darren Bennett's lettering. And of course, you can't forget Booher's writing. He fills this book with so much heart. It just blows me away. I loved the initial Kanto series. I loved this one-shot, and I cannot wait to see more coming. It's a deceptively simple story, but it's got a lot of heart to it and a lot of punch to it as well. Kanto and the Clockwork Angels, or Fairies, my bad. Fairies, Angels, what's the difference, right? Is out this week. Definitely worth your time to pick up. From Scout Comics, we have Vlad Dracula, #1. This one is written by Matteo Strucul, but the big highlight is Andrea Muti's artwork. Muti is the artist of Fearscape. If you read Fearscape, if you like that ethereal, textured artwork, you're going to love it in here. The coloring is absolutely amazing. The composition is amazing. The story's okay. The story's not quite as strong as I would have liked it to have been, but the artwork was fire, and it was amazing. Now, Jay Strick did an advanced review, a written advanced review of this on our website, popculturephilosophers.com, so definitely check that out for a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of this. The artwork was so great. I'm a big Dracula guy, so I'm going to follow this series for sure, because Muti's artwork to me just, wow, blew me away. Story could be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more compelling, a little bit more in your face, but it was okay. It's serviceable, but it's all in service of the artwork for me. Vlad Dracula, it's $6.99. It's a giant size, thick book. It's going to be a 3-issue series, but the artwork is incredibly atmospheric and ethereal and totally fit the tone of the story. Story, maybe a bit weak, but the artwork, weak it ain't. Vlad Dracula, #1 from Scout Comics. From Boom Studios, we have Power Rangers Ranger Slayer #1. This is an oversized one-shot comic book, $7.99, but it's a complete tale of the Ranger Slayer going back to her own universe and dealing with the ramifications of that world post-Lord Draken. So that's pretty cool. Thought it was neat. It's got some interesting bits in here, and I thought that this would set up some stuff to come, but it didn't really get that vibe from it. But there's a lot of elements of this story that could definitely reverberate throughout the rest of the Power Rangers line. We shall see what's coming. It's got artwork by Dan Mora, which means that it's fire. It's awesome. The coloring by Raul Angulo is wow. Let me show you that. Look at that artwork. Look at that coloring. The story is solid. The story is great. Even if you've never been into the Power Ranger books and you just want to kind of jump in and just kind of test it out to see if it is one of the best superhero in comics like I keep saying it is, pick up the free Comic Book Day issue that came out last week and then pick this up. And it's pretty dynamic. It's pretty awesome. And for long-term Power Rangers fans, it's got some shocking, really cool moments. Really cool. I liked it. Thought it was super solid. And it's got a variety of covers, including a spoiler variant. This bag, so you don't see the spoiler, so I don't want to show it to you. But it's pretty dope as well. And it's got a foil cover. A Ranger Slayer foil cover. come on, man. Wynd number 2 is here from Boom Studios. A vast improvement over issue number 1. Not that issue number 1 was bad, but it didn't work as a great first issue to hook you in and bring you into a story that's absolutely thrilling and compelling and intriguing. Issue 2 does that a little bit more. Now, of course, this was originally supposed to be just a graphic novel. Now it's going to be a 5-issue series. It's extra sized, but it's still $3.99. But you get a little bit more about the characters and about what the actual story is going to be about. There's a quest. There's a journey. That wasn't introduced in the first issue. It was introduced in the second. Now, if you're reading this as a graphic novel, where it's a little bit more long form, that would work. But breaking it up into issues, I think may have been a mistake. However, I do think more people will read it this way. However, if you were disappointed in issue number 1 of Wynd, I would encourage you to check out issue number 2 before you make that final decision and cut it off the pull list, because I really did like issue number 2. It really, like I said, fleshed out the characters more and the actual story, and it actually introduces the journey, the mission, the quest, what's going on. And I liked it a lot. This is written by James Tynion IV with Michael Dionylis on the artwork. They've worked together on The Woods, I think, before. Fantastic stuff. I loved issue number 2. Issue number 1, y'all know how I felt about it. But 2, completely solidified that for me. Maybe it will read better as a trade since it was originally written to be a graphic novel. Wynd number 2, though, I thought it was pretty dope. From Source Point Press, we have No Heroine number 1. This is by Frank Gogol, who was the writer of Dead End Kids, and I did think that book was good. Chris Mad on the artwork, colors by Shauna Mad. I thought this book was pretty decent. There's a lot of hype building up on this one, so good luck trying to find it. There will be a second printing coming, but good luck finding that one because it's only available through Source Point Press and some kind of special distributor or something like that. But it's kind of teased as being a little bit like a Buffy type thing, and I can definitely see where it's going to go. It deals with vampires. It deals with this woman who is a recovering drug addict. She's trying to get her life together, and then she gets thrown into the mix with vampires. And she's not quite Buffy yet, but you can definitely see that maybe they're building out to making her a little bit more badass. She definitely is about to go on this journey of self-discovery and self-improvement, and I think that's interesting how that's tied in with her and what's going on with the vampires and all that stuff. The art for me was a little bit weak. It was a bit inconsistent. Sometimes the line work was fine, sometimes it wasn't. It was a little bit up and down for me, but the story was intriguing. It was an interesting character, and I'd like to see where this is going to go. Like I said, this book's kind of heating up already. It's got a low print run. Even the second print's going to be a little hard to find, so even if you have to jump into it digitally or something, and you like vampires, if you like Buffy, I think maybe you should check this one out. No Heroine number 1, pretty solid. Also from Source Point Press was Skylin number 3. I missed number 2. What? There was a number. When did 2 come out? We just did 1. Now we at 3? What? I missed number 2. So I didn't read this one. But I just wanted you to know that it was out. Because I did like issue number 1. But don't worry, I got a number 2 on the way. Gutter Magic, Smoke and Mirrors, number 3. Pretty decent. I really would like to see Rich Douek be able to like just explore this world, explore the story. But I feel like because of the short like issue limit, right? There's just 4-issue series, and this is the second one, right? Like, I just feel like there's not enough space, not enough time to really develop this world as much as it should be developed, which makes it kind of a breezy, quick read, and ultimately a bit forgettable. Not Douek's best work, not near as good as Road of Bones or Wailing Blade, but still pretty decent. If you're into steampunk and fantasy, maybe check this one out. From Aftershock, we have The Man Who Effed Up Time, issue number 4, and I'm loving it. This is the penultimate issue of the series. We're starting to get a bit more clear on what's actually going on, though I do think that it's easy for us as the readers to kind of figure it out way earlier than it's going to be revealed in the pages. But this book's been fun. John Layman, Carl Mostert. I like the artwork. I like the fun, buoyant energy of the book. It's ridiculous. It's about this dude who keeps going back in time trying to fix what he did wrong, and it just makes it even worse. Even worse, and now it's even worse in this one. Issue number 4 was pretty solid. I really liked it. Like I said, issue number 5 will be the conclusion. This is a great setup for that. Cannot wait to see this wrap up. That's been a very, very fun book. Also from Aftershock, they have a free comic book day issue out this week. It's Dark Arc Instinct. This is a one-shot story that's set between the first 2 volumes of Dark Arc. So there's Dark Arc, and now they're doing Dark Arc After the Flood, right? This story fits right in the middle, and I thought it was pretty cool, mostly because of Antonio Fuso on the artwork. I really like that. The original series had artwork by Juan Doe. Loved it. The new series has a different artist. I'm not vibing on it near as much, but Antonio Fuso, Wow, really like this. I wish he was doing the artwork on After the Flood. Thought this was pretty cool. It's a free comic book day issue, so you might as well check it out if you haven't already. There are also a couple more free comic book day issues that came out this week, but I didn't pick them up. There's a Valiant one, has Vin Diesel's Bloodshot on it. There's a couple other ones too. There's one like about a video game, Horizon Dawn. Is that something? I don't know. From AWA Aftershock. I almost said Aftershock. AWA Upshot Comics. We have Hotel number 3, a great issue. I'm loving this. This is another penultimate issue. It's about this hotel that's hardly ever found on Route 66. It's got 4 rooms, and in each of the rooms, there's a creepy story to be told. And the way that John Lees is writing this is the first issue was room 1, then room 2, and now we're in room 3. And you're starting to see glimpses of the previous stories or what's to come, and that's neat. But just the story itself is pretty good, very effective. I don't think it's as strong as issue 1 or 2, but it is pretty decent, and I do like this book, and I really liked issue number 3. Artwork handles the atmosphere, the creepy need and tone. I really like that. Hotel number 3, if you were into issues 1 and 2, I think you're going to like issue number 3. But to me, not quite as solid as issue number 2. The Resistance is here with issue number 3. J. Michael Straczynski, Mike Deodato Jr. Man, this book had such an amazing first issue. And then in the second issue, I'm like, so you're really just turning this into a typical JMS superhero book? Yeah. In issue number 3, yeah, 100%. It's got some interesting ideas about like the corporate nature of superheroes, and I think that's kind of nifty and cool, but the artwork by Deodato feels a bit rushed and sloppy, especially knowing what he can do when you've seen him on a recent work like Berserker or his stuff on Old Man Logan, for instance. So it's kind of a disappointment for me as far as that goes, and I just hate that it's such a brilliant first issue, and it just becomes a typical JMS superhero book like Rising Stars or something. I'm starting to get more of a Rising Stars vibe, and I feel like it's just going to kind of fizzle out, but I don't know. We shall see. But right now, the Resistance is waning on me. From Ablaze, we have Kids number 5. Loved this issue. What a great issue. This book keeps getting better. It's a zombie apocalypse story, but it's about a group of kid survivors. There's no adult supervision, so it's dealing with the idea of what would these kids do in these situations. And man, does it take a deep and dark turn in issue number 5, and I loved it. I have always talked about how the artwork was a bit cartoony, and maybe that would throw some people off, but I thought it fit the story because it's a story about kids and a zombie apocalypse. But man, the art can handle these dark issues. It can handle the tragedy. It can handle the somber moments. It can handle the quiet moments. The art's actually just better than just being decently cartoony. It really does capture the pace and tone of this book, even in the more nuanced and tragic moments. And that's what this is. Plus, if you're going to like tribute the gorillas on a cover, I'm like 20% more likely to pick it up. From Dynamite, we have Green Hornet number 1. It's a new one. It's written by Scott Lobdell. It's got artwork by Anthony Marquise and inks by Jay Bone. Taylor Esposito on the lettering. This book was okay. It wasn't super bad. I've never really been that into Green Hornet comic books. But what I really liked about this was the artwork. It's a simple animated type style with a monochromatic coloring to it. It's all like greens and shades of that, and I thought that was pretty cool, but the story was kind of okay. It's better than some of the other Green Hornet books that I've tried to read, so I guess that's pretty cool, but it was just alright. If you're a big Green Hornet fan, definitely check it out, but if you're not, maybe not. But if you like the monochromatic type stuff, I thought that was pretty decent. Billionaire Island number 3 is here from Ahoy Comics. This is Mark Russell doing what Mark Russell does best, which is fun, satirical comics that are very scathing. Absolutely. I thought this was cool. It's about this island. The world's going to shit. And so all these billionaires, they've created this floating island, and they just go there and they can kind of get away with whatever they want. They can treat people however they want. It's like absolutely insane. But in a Mark Russell fashion. It's saying something, but it's saying something while being incredibly funny and goofy all at the same time. So it's handling that balance. I think it's pretty decent. It's not as heartfelt as Second Coming, but it is trying to say something, but it's saying something in a way that's very entertaining. So I'm liking it. Steve Pugh's artwork's pretty solid. Starts getting a bit shaky in issue number 3 for me, but still enjoying the series, and I will still continue on along with it. From Action Lab Entertainment, Danger Zone, we have Sweetheart number 2. Now, during the shutdown, this book went straight on digital, and they were releasing them like once a week, and I've already read the entire series, and I loved issue number 2. So if you were reading issue number 1 in print and you were waiting for it to come back, it's back. Issue number 2 was great. I will tell you this, though. Overall, the book is great, but it has, to me, a weak ending, right? Issue 5's kind of a weak ending, but a logical ending all at the same time. But the artwork and the story in issue number 2 is really cool, and I really like it. So if you have been following along with this one, you can check it out. And if you want to know my thoughts on each single issue, check out some of my weekly comic book reviews I did during the shutdown. That's right. Even when comics weren't releasing, we never stopped here at PCP. We kept on with the weekly comic book review. Well, that's what I read. That's what I thought about them. What are you reading? What are you getting excited about? What gets you jacked about comic books? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, advanced reviews, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.